Recently I found a quite interesting book in the library, and it's about the machine gun in 1907. And this is especially interesting because you often hear about the First World War, nobody saw it coming, that it will happen that way in a static warfare and everything, and often there's the notion that the Russo-Japanese War was ignored. The question is, at which level? Because this book in particular, I hope autofocus works now, notes that in the preface that it's due to the lessons from the Russo-Japanese War, and additionally in the final chapter it also mentions all the other times the machine guns was used in military history before, and when it was effective and when it wasn't effective, and under which circumstances. So it especially is interesting if you look at the table of contents. This is, by the way, the second edition, and both editions happened in the same year. So this is very interesting, and it's also self-published. And the table of contents is basically a history of the development of Maschinenwaffen, and this is also very interesting. If you look here, for all of you who know German, there's an EN missing basically, because it's Maschinengewehr usually, but here it's Maschinengewehr. And I have a different book from 1917, also from the library, where it is already written with an EN. So that is quite interesting, which I noticed. But back to the table of contents. So first, the history of the development of machine guns, or machine weapons in this case. Then the general characteristics of modern machine guns. And then the characteristics of machine gun fire, where it's discussed, for instance, for which type of fire it is appropriate against what type of enemy. Then the fourth chapter is a description of the state of machine guns in the Austro-Hungarian army, of those systems that were deployed and are still in development, or basically in testing. Then machine gun formations of foreign states. Then the state of the machine gun question in Austro-Hungary. And then some thoughts about the purposeful organization of machine gun units. So it goes a lot into organization. And then how training could be performed. Then the tactical use of the machine gun. And finally, some examples from various different wars, for instance, the Boer War and also the Russo-Japanese War, and some others about the use of the machine gun in combat. And it also comes with quite some interesting plates here, or with posters with a lot of information which they took from some tests. Because yeah, it's a study, and it's by Oberleutnant Franz, which is basically first lieutenant. There's always problems with translating the ranks directly. And he was an Instruktionsoffizier, instruction officer at an Imperial Army School, K&K Armeeschule. It's quite interesting. So in the characteristics, he basically talks about that a machine gun is about equal to a squad of, no, not a squad, a platoon of 50 riflemen of average shooting capabilities. He notes mittelgute Schützen. And then he goes into details like the accuracy difference. For instance, that the machine gun, because due to recoil and also because it heats up, that the accuracy is a bit less, because the ammo was basically the same. The machine gun ammo back then was the same like the rifle ammo. And that, for instance, it's very important to get the range correct, more correct, because you have one gunner. And also certain other characteristics from the machine gun fire, that the range is more important than with regular rifles. Then he notes for which targets it's not very suited. For instance, for units in cover, if they're dispersed and in cover, he notes not good, but it's excellent for fighting units in the open, basically cavalry, charging infantry, and also attacking reserves. And then he also notes the effect on the morale of the troops, especially noting a Japanese officer from the Russo-Japanese War, and he notes, and if he quotes him basically saying that the only thing that the soldiers were afraid of was the machine gun. So I couldn't find another reference where this is done or not, so I'm not sure if it's totally correct. Then, as mentioned, it contains quite a lot of data sheets. And in the end, there's the discussion of various wars. And for instance, in the Second Boer War, he notes that the British weren't really successful in deploying the machine guns because they didn't deploy them, usually deploy them in a single way. And so often the Boers who were better equipped, or not better equipped, but more equipped than the enemies the British fought beforehand, could sometimes overcome the machine guns by concentrated fire on it when they got close enough. And which is also very interesting is the strong focus when he talks about basically not about regular infantry formations. In this book, he talks mainly about mountain units and cavalry units. I mean, mountain units make sense in Austria, and he especially notes in the defense in the mountains because you usually don't have enough space. So for 10 riflemen. So with a machine gun, this is of course excellent for defending certain key points. And for cavalry, he also notes that they can, basically to keep the speed up, and also that you don't, for instance, that you can deploy the firepower with 1 or 2 machine guns, but you can keep on going with the mounted units, for instance, for taking a certain position and other elements. Now, from what I know, he didn't see the major increase in machine guns and the major impact they would have on the war, because I know that the number of machine guns increased dramatically in the German divisions from 1914 to 1918. A video I did about 1 year ago, or 1.5 years ago. And so I think this is just a sober assessment of the time, which of course foretold in a certain aspect that the machine gun would be more important, but it doesn't seem like it was this radical mind that saw, okay, this will have a huge impact. But once I know more about tactics exactly in the First World War with machine guns and everything, I will probably take a look again and then see if this development was foretold by him or not, or if he actually missed the point. Now, if you want to know more about World War I, check out my infantry division video on the German army, the development from 1914 to 1918, or my video on artillery combat in World War I, how it developed from 1914 to 1918. Thank you for watching and see you next time.